Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hello, this is Kelly, and you are listening to In Her Voice. Thank you so much for being here today. I just want to let you know, you, how much I love you, how much I am grateful for you, and how much I hope that you are taking care of yourself. And I think that right now, in this very time, June of 2020, that is more important than ever. And I just want to send you some love. And I want to remind you that you need to send yourself some love. Today, I have a really important interview to share with you. And it's also really, really good. It's with my friend Erica Courdae, who has been on the podcast before. And we are talking today about imperfect allyship. And if there is anything that recovering perfectionists need to hear, it is this interview, because I feel that I see so many women struggling with feeling like they're going to mess up when it comes to being an ally of Black and people of color. And we're not doing anybody any favors by staying stuck there in a place of feeling frozen. I speak from experience here. I feel like I was in a frozen place for a really long time. I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I didn't want to, mess up. And now I've just recognized that that's part of the process of being an ally. It's all part and parcel of doing that. And Erica is on today to really share with us about how to do that, about how to get past those barriers that might be keeping you stuck, and how to just really show up for yourself and for the people around you. Let me tell you a little bit about Erica. Erica Courdae has dedicated her life to expanding how others interact with the world through powerful conversations. As an entrepreneur and certified coach, her work is frequently focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, imperfect allyship, and imposter syndrome. This work has taken her across the country, onto stages, and into communities as a key speaker and educator. Erica also has a podcast that features open conversation and dialogue on the topics of her work and more, Paws on the Play. Her support and leadership facilitates engaged conversations with six-figure communities, international podcasts, and live events to connect people and create change. I really hope that you enjoy this interview. I got a lot out of it, and I'm so grateful to Erica for taking time to be with us today. Here we go. I'd like to welcome back to In Her Voice for the second time, Erica Courdae. So glad you could be here with me today.
I always appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Oh, you're welcome. And when I reached out to you about coming on to talk about what it means to be an imperfect ally, I was so pleased when you were able to make time in your really busy schedule to be here. So just double gratitude to you for doing this for me and for all of our listeners, because what I really want to dig into today is allyship as a recovering perfectionist. Because this is something I know that I've been bumping into a lot over the past month, and beyond that, but really a lot over the past month. And I'm sure that I am not the only one. This is a group of women here who listen to this, who know what it's like to be classic overachievers. They want to do everything right. And, there's nothing wrong with the desire to want to do everything right, but talk to us about how that can get in the way of the most important things right now?
Well, the biggest challenge that I always find that comes up for my clients is the fact that they do tell themselves that, oh, I have to do this right, but that also indicates that there's only one way to do this. And I think that that in itself is really this place of, if I can't do it right, then I'm not going to do it because, of course, I'm a perfectionist. I want this to be ideal and spot on. And if I can't do that, I'm not going to do it. And there is more than one way to do it. And it's not about any of them being right or wrong, being that the only thing that's right or wrong is, the wrong part of not doing anything. And so there has to be this space of kind of holding a little bit of duality of, I can do this and still be learning. And for so many people, I think that goes against the entire essence of how you have just existed up to this point. And it really does call you to allow space to exist and to be in action differently.
Mm-hmm. I like that. What I hear you saying is, if we can approach this with a beginner's mind, then that is going to open up a world of possibility for us.
Well, and even with a beginner's mind, and I'll use my 8-year-old son for an example, like he does not like to get things wrong. But then once he knows it, he's like, but I don't want to do that because I already know that. And it's too easy. And yet when he gets it wrong, then he gets frustrated. And I'm like, dude, we can't do both here. Like you can't, be afraid to get it wrong and yet say, well, I don't want to do this because this is too easy. Like there has to be this space of, if you know something, there's always room for mastery. If I don't know, then I have to be inquisitive enough that I'm willing to learn something new and to explore and to do it imperfectly. But there's also this sweet spot of like, I don't know this perfectly, and yet I'm not truly a beginner, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to kind of have almost 2 feet in both camps in the sense of like, I'm not perfect at this, but I know the necessity of doing it. And I feel that that's such an important piece for what's happening right now.
Oh, for sure. Then this is where practice comes in. I think my listeners might get tired of me talking about practice. I hope not, because I talk about it a lot. Because practice is not about perfect. It's not practice makes perfect. It's practice makes easier. Mm-hmm. And we practice the things that are hard so they can become easier. So I'm wondering if we could get really practical right now and talk about easy ways to practice being an imperfect ally.
So where for me, when I think the practice, I think about, like, for me, it's that imperfect action, because to me, that imperfect allyship is a part of imperfect action, because being an ally is not about just kind of slapping the statement on it. It's like, well, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. What do your actions look like? And so being an imperfect ally is, first of all, it's about acknowledging I don't know everything. And so like, I just finished recording a podcast episode that talked about how this month was a very difficult intersection between it being Pride Month and yet at the same time, the Black Lives Matter movement was a huge part of it. And there's this place to where I've seen some people struggle of like, okay, how do I do both? And it's like, it's not either or, it's and. And so first of all, like if you have that knowledge, then you can begin to kind of see where the intersections are. And I think that that's a piece of it. So education and knowledge to be able to understand why the marginalization, oh, good grief, not enough coffee, is happening, and being able to kind of dig into that, I think that that helps. And then you can begin to see, okay, well, what does equity look like? Because equity isn't the same for every marginalized group. So when you're able to kind of see what that can look like, then it can be, okay, is that donating to causes? Is that mentoring? Is that giving my time at a particular cause or charity that, there's something coming up? Is it providing access for an entrepreneur that just simply needs to be able to get in front of the right people? Is it possibly offering awards with the services that you offer that could support people that don't look like you, that maybe otherwise didn't know that you existed, or that you were able to support them. And I say award because scholarship can make someone feel like, oh, I don't have enough money and you're giving it to me because I'm the poor kid. That's where I tend to prefer award, but it's really about amplification. Mm-hmm. It's really about visibility. And so I think that there's opportunities when it comes to things like that. Introducing someone to someone that that would be a really great person for them to be able to connect with, that could support where they're trying to be. Like, I think there's a number of things that can happen, but when people go into that place, going back to where we started with, oh, I have to do it right, that really just indicates that there are some very specific ways to do this. And if you don't fall into this bubble, like, oh, no, we don't do that.
Yeah. What it sort of brings up to mind for me as I hear you talk is, we talk a lot about your gifts, like, what are our gifts? I really believe that we are all gifted with certain things that are easy for us and not so easy for other people. And, that's sort of our superpower. And I think that if we can find the intersection of our superpower and our allyship, that is where we're going to be able to lead most effectively. And so it doesn't have to look like everybody else, because everyone else has different superpowers than you do. And so, for me, one of my superpowers is listening. And so I've really been digging in to the listening piece. And another one of my superpowers is talking to people and doing interviews. And so I've really been leaning into that as well. And it's interesting because even as I talk about this, what I'm realizing is oh yes, this is an affirmation for me of where I can do the most important work. And it doesn't have to be all of it. We were talking before we got on about I'm kind of an all or nothing. Mm-hmm. And that it has almost brought me to a point of feeling frozen. Like, how could I do everything? How can I be everything? And you said to me before we got started, we were talking about something completely different, vacation, actually. But you said, it doesn't have to be one or the other, Kelly. Can you talk about how to really understand this intersection? How do we get there? How do we come to that place of knowing, here's where I'm supposed to be?
Well, I want to make sure I mirror back to you mentioning leadership. And I think leadership is a big part of it. And I think people can tend to think that a leader is the person that's in charge, the person behind the podium. And leadership is not about that. Leadership is about leading. And that's about your actions. It's your intentions coming through in a way that people trust you and they feel comfortable in knowing that you are doing something that is bigger than self. And really kind of stepping into this place of, okay, I want to, be able to support others and, if nothing else, showing them what's possible. And so I'm seeing people right now stepping into exactly what you're talking about with, I can support Black lives and I can support LGBTQIA. I can, say that I am donating to charities that are helping to bail out protesters and still care about the environment. Like, that place of, I don't have to just do one thing, because very often we can feel like, okay, well, if I do this, how do I do this too? And you have to really identify whether or not that's just something that is kind of self-created in order to give yourself a reason why you can't do more than one thing, why you can't care about more than one thing at a time, or you can't support more than one thing at a time. And I think it's important to really say, like, is that true? Or is that something that I'm creating for myself as a self-fulfilling prophecy as to why I can't or I won't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And here's where all of you who are listening, you can really tap into your inner voice, because your inner wisdom is not an asshole. And it's going to guide you. It's going to guide you in the direction you need to go. And I experienced this very thing. And Erica, you might not even realize this, but you were a big part of like sort of an aha moment that I had. A few weeks ago when it was Blackout Tuesday, there was this big movement and, everyone was saying, put up a black square and amplify black voices and just listen and be quiet. And in my heart, I felt like, but I really feel like that's what I'd been doing for a long time. And I felt an urge to speak. And I was confused. I was like, well, I don't want to do it I don't want to mess up. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to do it the wrong way. And I was really struggling with that because I felt that urge from my inner voice to continue speaking up. And then I was getting all these messages from around me that said, don't. And so I was sort of sitting with that and feeling a little angsty, not a little angsty, a lot angsty about that. And I watched a Instagram live that you did, and it really affirmed to me the importance of listening to my inner voice, because what you reflected back to me was, if you feel like you need to say something now is not the time to be silent. And what I loved about that experience was that I was able to listen to my own inner voice and actually seek guidance from people that I trust to reflect back to me what I needed to hear. And that combination felt very empowering for me. And I think the question that I have that I'd like you to dig into is, how do we find those people that can reflect back to us? And how do we trust our inner voice and not feel so torn by all of the messaging that's coming at us? Because there's a lot right now.
It is. And I think that it's a little bit of trial and error. And I'm going to first say, I have gratitude and I greatly appreciate you for allowing me to be one of those voices, because we all have choices there. So for that, thank you.
Thank you. Really, thank you.
I think that there can be a lot of noise, and it is challenging to be able to decide what you want to let in and what you want to block out. But I think if you can't do that, if you don't have clarity around what your values are and what those values look like in practice and how they tend to just kind of actually like kind of manifest themselves in action, because I think you're going to have an easier time, if you understand that, to be able to say what works for you and what doesn't. So for example, there's a number of people that do what I do. And there are some people that do it in a way that is more shame-based than what I do things. And so if that is not a motivator for you, and that can make you feel like you almost want to spiral out and give up, then you have to acknowledge that maybe that's not the best for you. However, you also have to acknowledge, is it that they are doing things from a shame-based perspective, or is it that they're calling out bullshit and you're like, oh, that didn't feel good? That's different. It is one thing to hear the things that we don't always want or like to hear, but that we need to hear, as compared to, the way you do things just doesn't feel good to me.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that you brought this up, because I had actually written down some things to talk about before we got on. And one of them is the distinction between feeling uncomfortable and feeling like you're in shame.
Yes. Because I think that, the discomfort is typically pointing to something. It's like, wait, I'm here. We need to talk. Like, you need to pay attention. And it's something else to feel as though I'm a terrible person. I did this wrong. Oh my gosh, this was awful. And I also think that there's a distinction when it comes to shame, in the sense of, and see, okay, this is where I'm going to say I'm from the camp of people that I don't think that anyone makes you feel anyway. I think you choose to feel that way. So people say, you made me feel blah, blah, blah. No, I didn't do anything actually to you, because I can't make you feel that way. You chose to feel that way. Now, what I did may have put you in a place that was what came up, but I can't make you do anything. And so if there is a point to where something comes up, and it's very pertinent because there are some people, I'll use Instagram as an example, that are doing things and it's like, wait, I don't think you thought about how that actually came across. And then when someone says something, then it immediately becomes this, let me deflect, let me turn this around, and then victim shame. But let me do everything but take any responsibility. And at that point, that's a very different thing from, you know what, I don't feel good about this, but I have to take ownership of this. I messed up. And for that, I apologize. I'll make my amends. I will learn to do it differently going forward. But I don't think that is the same as like, you know, oh my gosh, you made me feel so bad. No, you just don't feel good about it. And you don't want to take ownership that you made an action that didn't land well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, here's the thing. We're going to do that. Because that's what it means to be imperfect.
Yes.
And I think that we need to prepare ourselves for screwing up. And, you know, I've seen a lot in other people, but also as I've been listening and reading, I notice that I have some defensiveness that pops up. Like that is sort of a shield that I use a little bit. And, you know, this will even be like, I will be reading something and I will be like, oh, there's some defensiveness. And lately I've been trying to be really curious about that instead of judging it, instead of immediately going to like anger or like a defensive place. Like when it pops up, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why might I be feeling that when I read this certain statement or when I hear somebody say something about this? And, you know, I'm curious to know what you would advise as those of us who are really stepping into learning and educating ourselves more about what it means to be an imperfect ally, about what it means to be Black. I mean, I don't know what it feels like to be Black because I'm not. And as I read and listen, when that defensiveness pops up, what can I do with that?
Honestly, the first thing that comes up is in my head, I'm like, don't say anything.
Right.
Because it is likely that whatever is communicated at that moment is just coming from a very self-focused and almost like selfish, and I need to defend something that isn't even actually mine. Because what you're feeling is it's more about the systemic pieces. It's more about things that maybe you identify with because you were born into that particular thing because of the body that you're in, but it may or may not actually be yours. And so I think it's worthwhile to first kind of say, okay, I felt that. And do I feel the need to defend it because I want to justify if I've ever been there? Do I want to justify that this is these are the things that I take for granted because of the body that I'm in, and I feel a certain way, and oh, now I have to do this? Like, it's really kind of acknowledging and being inquisitive about, why do I need to do that? Why is it not okay to be quiet and listen? Why is it not okay to sit with it for a second and figure out what it is? And there's this place for me, when I hear a white person that's, you know, will mention the discomfort, and there's just this constant desire to want to push it away. And as humans, we don't want to be uncomfortable, and that's understood. But that constant need to push it away, in my opinion, belittles the constant discomfort that a Black person in America has to sit in on a daily basis just because of the body that they inhabit. And that doesn't take into consideration any intersections of if you are if you're a woman, if you're trans, if you're gay. Like, there's too many other pieces of this. If you're disabled, like, it's like, wait, we haven't even done that. And then we're already like, oh, no, I can't do that. And if we take it back to almost this childlike piece of it, like, babies don't say, you know, I think I'm just going to crawl because I can walk and we can figure this out, and I can fall and I can hurt myself, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to crawl. I'll stick with this. And so that place of like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to fall, I'm going to get up, I'm going to bump stuff, I'm going to keep doing it. And because I want to learn, because I want to do better. I want to have mastery of this so I can pick up the next thing. And it comes up because, in our community, in Paws on the Play, we've had people that have kind of had these conversations of like, I feel like a toddler in this, and other people like, I'm only in second grade. Like, I'm not that far above you here. Like, I've done it a little bit longer, but not that long. I'm still learning. And there is that, kind of parallel there that I think that is helpful, because I think what happens is we have this space in life of being willing to be imperfect and damn near anything else and not this. We can practice music and understand that I'm not going to be perfect. We can practice art and understand I'm not going to be perfect at painting right away. We can start a business knowing I am not going to be perfect at this, and I'm probably going to mess some things up, and I may even have to start again, and we'll still do it. Yet, when it comes to supporting people that don't look like you, it's like, oh, but wait, I can't do it perfectly. How am I supposed to still do that? And it's like, oh, we're missing the point.
Why do you think that is, Erica?
Honestly, it's one of those things that, like, from an educational standpoint, I've been just constantly digging into, because I'm just like, what, from a psychological standpoint, what is it about it that is just so like, I can't? And it's still kind of, it baffles me. And I mean, like, I think of things when it comes to like Brene Brown, when it comes to shame and perfectionism and pieces like that. But at the same time, I'm like, what is it about our programming? And we all have our pieces of programming, because that's what allows us to play our part in kind of where we are. And, the entire system being like, wait, no, you're waking up and I don't want you to kind of not do these things anymore. But we all have our parts. And it's just like, why is it so difficult to allow the space to say, I don't want to do this and I want to do this better, and I have to start somewhere, and that's okay, because every moment that I say that I can't do it because I'm not perfect, I'm belaboring my infancy in this, and there's no reason for it. And I don't know what it is about the fear that is just so persistent and being willing to just get started, because every client that I've ever had, regardless of where they started, once they started, it was fine. It was, and that doesn't mean fine like it got easy, but it was just, they understood that it was going to have its hiccups and it was going to have its challenges, and yet they were still willing and understanding of what it was in order to keep going. But something about that first step, man, it's rough.
Mm-hmm. I can't figure it out either. Honestly, like, even as you say it, I'm like, it just doesn't even make sense. Like, why people think that they would be able to just like, do it without even practicing or trying before.
Correct.
It's very interesting. And you know what I wonder too, particularly with women, how much people pleasing comes into play?
Well, the people pleasing comes in just because of the fact that the minute that you step into allyship, you are consciously taking a risk that some people that saw you in one way will no longer see you in that exact same way. Because some people will be on board and some won't. Some people will say, I want your support in your allyship. Some will say, I do not. And so I think it's that unknown of knowing how you will be received and what that will look like and how you have to navigate that, and that there truly are no hard and fast rules, let alone truly any answers. It's just, I'm going and I'm doing, and this is not about, how someone else perceives me. This is not about you have to give me your approval or you have to still like me. But we're pack animals and we want to be liked. We want to be included. And for a lot of the clients that I have that are white, they are finding this place of bringing words to something that has been very challenging for a long time, and gave reason to why it justified in their head why they didn't do it. And it was the fact of, I didn't want to have to navigate what it looks like for people to disapprove of it. I didn't want to be the odd man out. All of a sudden I'm speaking out, and whether they agree or not, they struggle with that. And unfortunately, my business partner, Indy, and I, we've had to deal with that, because we had someone that was a part of our team and had been for about almost 3/4 of a year. And a few weeks ago, they came back and said, I respect what you're doing, but I don't really agree with it, and that's not where I am. And for some people, that whole concept of losing people and having to, really come face to face with that is enough to say, I'm not ready to do this because I'm not ready to navigate that. And for us, we're like, okay, well, I would just rather you not be here if you're not aligned. But I'm not going to ever belittle the fact that that's hard. Everyone's not there.
Well, and I think too, like, even from the other from like, what I hear you saying is, I think the people who are starting to step out and say, I support Black people, we need to make changes in the systemic oppression that's going on, that there's concern that people who have never seen them say that before are going to be like, who the heck are you? And do I even know you? But
yes.
I think there's people pleasing that happens in the other direction too. People pleasing that happens from people not speaking out because they're afraid of hurting Black feelings.
I think the people pleasing comes up in a whole just from the sense of like, again, I want to get it right. And whatever the kind of masses are in that particular situation in that moment, it's like, is it that I want to be a part of the movement? Is it that I want to be a part of this entire other group of entrepreneurs that I've known long term and all of us are stuck and I'm just going to stay stuck too because it feels better to be a part of this collective stuck hole than the one person not a part of the entire whole that has figured it out, but then I feel isolated, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and before we got on, we were talking about perfectionism, and you mentioned something that I think is so good that people need to hear, and that is perfectionism in any form, including when it comes to allyship, is really just a form of procrastination. Talk about that.
So I think what can happen is that procrastination of, I can't do this perfectly is the reason why you can't do it. The reason that you can't, whether you actually can't navigate or you give yourself the story that you can't navigate, supporting more than one cause or one group at a time, it's like, oh, well, if I can't do it, this is where I need to now stay. And, I've seen people specifically, again, when it comes to like this month being Pride Month, and it's like, well, I want to support LGBTQIA plus, and I want to support the, BLM movement. And it's like, but I don't know how to do both. And so then I just won't. And it's like, that's a part of not supporting anyone, and that's not helpful. It's a part of saying I'm only going to support one. And then you just kind of divide the efforts and the collective battle cry, so to speak. And I'm like, that's not helping. That's kind of what the system wants in order to say that, see, everybody can't have it all. This is why this is happening. And, for whatever reason, when I think the system, like I almost think about kind of like the example of like the Terminator or the Matrix. And it's like this overarching thing that's like, no, I'm going to divide you all and you do the work for me. And it's like, you need to find the ways to not have that need to do it perfectly or that need to do it right or that overarching understanding to already reside within you. Not having those is not only okay, but it's also safe to do that.
Oh yeah, safe.
And right. And so like I find that coming up a lot. People like that, they're struggling with that. And I'm like, it's safe to say I support Black lives and Black trans lives because the intersection matters. It's okay to say, I support, saving the whales, and I support, indigenous people. And like you can do more than one thing. And it's okay to be able to do your best and to then have that place to say, I can see where I could have done something differently. I see where my intent did not match my impact. You make amends. You take responsibility, you learn better, and you keep moving forth. Like that just needs to be where you stay, and you keep perfectionism out of it because it just becomes an excuse.
Mm-hmm. I saw a great Instagram post today about things that you can say when you mess up. Mm-hmm. And, it seems really simple. Like if I messed up if I had a typo in an email and someone said, oh, you have a typo, or, if I don't know, give someone the wrong amount of money for my dinner or something like that, and they pointed it out to me, oh, there's not enough money here. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I would just say that, right? That's also what we can say when we mess up. Like, thank you. Thank you for letting me know that I did that wrong, because that means next time I can do better. And I find that very empowering. Like, to me, that's like, oh, that's all I have to say.
Well, because there's this big point of somehow the mistake, it's almost like, what is that statement? Failure is not fatal.
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
Like there are things that are fatal, but short of like what we saw happen to George Floyd, like these types of things are fatal. If you say the wrong thing online, that's probably not fatal. It is likely that, again, you can acknowledge it, and you can, and then if someone brought it to your attention, being able to say, I appreciate you even saying anything and giving me the opportunity to make the course correction and to do better the next time. Because some people just won't say anything, and they'll just feel how they feel, and you won't get an opportunity to know better, to learn better, and to do better. So somebody giving you that chance, that teachable moment, that is a gift. Well, they don't have to.
And it means that they care. That they care about you. I mean, if you came to me and said, Kelly, wow, you really got it wrong this time, I would think to myself, I'm so glad I have Erica in my life, because I want to surround myself with people who care about me and who love me the way I love them. And so really that's just a testament, because it's not easy to tell someone that they messed up either.
No, but there's also power in being able to say that this person felt empowered in using their voice, and that they chose to use it in this situation, being that so many people feel silenced.
Yeah.
And so feeling as though you can speak your truth and be willing to dig into that, and to be less concerned about the outcome than being able to address the matter at hand. While it shouldn't be an act of bravery, it is.
Yes, it takes courage. And you know what this brings me back around to is how, when we acknowledge ourselves as being worthy, that instills the courage to believe that what we're saying is the right thing to say. Like that instills the courage in us to speak where we feel led to speak. And that's a personal journey, that worthiness. And I'm wondering how you see worthiness as being a piece of all of this.
I think worthiness plays into whether or not you think that you are good enough, strong enough, capable enough, going back to worthiness, to be able to support someone else and to be an ally. I think the worthiness comes up in the sense of, can I speak up if I see something? Is that okay? Is it safe to do it? Am I wrong? Am I not going to have the right thing? What's going to happen when they come after me? Oh my gosh, someone else is going to get upset. And so that worthiness needs to come in the sense of, I know enough, and I am resilient enough that whatever may happen following this, I know that this is what I need to do based on my ethics and my values at this moment. And me trusting in that means that I feel good in my actions, and I feel safe in taking those actions. And I think there's this worthiness in the sense of, I am worthy enough on the inside that my imperfection does not outweigh that.
Say that again.
I am worthy enough on the inside that my imperfection does not outweigh that.
Yes. Erica, that's so good. Thank you. Thank you for saying this. It's like, I feel like this is what I needed to hear right now, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one. You have an amazing community, the Pause and the Play community. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how people can learn more about it?
Absolutely. So the community that we have built, myself and my business partner and co-host over at Paws on the Play, India Jackson, it's really a space for you to begin to not only dig into your DEI efforts, but what it looks like in your business, how it shows up in your marketing efforts. And as you are going along your journey, you don't have to do it on your own. You're able to go in and say, okay, I am imperfect, and yet I am trying to navigate this as best as I can, and I want to be able to really navigate that space of, I don't want to just intentionally be out here saying things and not concerned about how it affects people, but I also don't want to be afraid of being supportive because I don't know and I don't know how. And so that space of really discussing that with others that are doing that, it's a powerful place. And again, it's shame free, and it really is there so that you understand that, like, I'm not out here to truly hurt anyone, and yet I know that there's things to learn, and I want to do it with others that will be supportive of me. And so you can learn more at pawsontheplay.com/community. If you go to the website, you'll be able to learn a little more about us, but then it also gives you the space to go ahead and apply to be admitted and selected for the community.
Fantastic. And I really encourage everyone to check that out. Like I said, Erica is one of my trusted friends, and I'm glad to have you in my life. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, again, this matters to me
does.
to have people that, that they trust me, and I can trust that, you really do want to be a part of the collective whole of everything being more equitable. And for that, I appreciate that.
Of course. I like to end always on the same question, and that is, in your life right now, what is your inner voice saying to you?
Listen and be in action. I think that there is space for all of us to listen to others more and to truly understand and hear what's being said and to not write the story. But there's also this place of, how can I make this into an action? How can I not use listening as a means of procrastination because I don't feel like I'm going to be perfect? Like, how can I listen and heed that call to actually do better? And I can never do better if I don't do anything. And so as you learn, and then, you're hearing what people actually want from you, and you're willing to, navigate that, possibly mess up at some point, again, make your acknowledgments and then keep going, but really just giving that space for imperfection to keep you in action, and knowing that you're listening to what the call needs from you now.
Yes, wise words from your inner voice. Erica, thank you so much for all that you're doing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us here today on In Her Voice. And I look forward to the next time that you're here.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right, challenge has been issued. Get out there and be bold and be courageous and take imperfect action, because imperfect action is better than no action every single day. I just want to reiterate this idea of feeling uncomfortable as not being necessarily a bad thing. We don't like to be uncomfortable, but discomfort is where change happens. Discomfort is where growth happens. It makes me think back to when I was little and my legs would hurt, and my mom would say, "Oh, those are just growing pains." And I think that we're all experiencing some growing pains right now. And that's the cost. That is the price of growth. Are you willing to pay it? Are you willing to pay it? I want to remind you that you matter, that your words matter, that your heart matters. And when you listen to your heart and you do what it says, it will not lead you wrong. You are worthy.